Okay, I want to document the building of my pole barn, and unfortunately, I lost the first portion of my videos when I started this. I do have a lot of pictures left, so what I did was I just I put all the pictures into a video, and I'll just kind of talk through what we did here. Um, I just felt like rather than have half a video and half doing like this, I just do the whole video like this. And there are a few little pieces of video that I added in there just to show some of what we were doing. But this is a 40 by 80 pole barn, and my lot was really unlevel. Um, let's move this forward here, see if I can get a different angle here. All right, my lot from the front up here where it's only about a foot off the ground to back here, it's kind of hard to see the grass that's kind of grown up around it. Um, but it's almost 4 feet off the ground back here, 4.5 feet, something like that. So rather than try to fill all this back here and then pour concrete on top of it or put my post into the ground and worry about my post deteriorating over time, I just decided to block this up, fill it with sand. Um, Actually, not fill it with sand, but fill it with uh, a dirt that packs really well and stays tight, and then pour the slab on top of that, and then my uh, post here are sitting on top of they're actually sitting in some concrete forms that were put into the concrete when it was wet and formed there. So none of my posts are in the ground. None of them actually touch the concrete, which it wouldn't matter because it stays dry in there anyway. But they're still slightly off the concrete. They actually sit on the forms, and I was able to use the entire 16 feet. So the walls are 16 feet tall. Again, it's 80 feet long, 40 feet wide, and so it's a really nice size building. It's big enough if I want to, I could build me loft storage. I might eventually put me a loft apartment in there, something a little small apartment to stay out here if I want to stay out at it. This is not too far from town. Um, I live right in town, and it's probably 15 minutes to get out there tops, depending on the traffic. So it's not that far out of town, but it's on sitting on 3.5 acres. There is a house on this lot as well, and I let my son live in that house. He was living in it. It's actually empty now. He got married, and him and his wife got a job. Both got a job somewhere else, and so they've moved now. So the house is just sitting there. I may rent it at some point, but I bought this property for the sole purpose of building this uh, pole barn slash shop and having a place to keep my equipment and to work on my equipment and all of that. So, but that's just kind of a little background history on this. But the poles are 10 feet apart. There's going to be a door and a window right here and a porch on this front right corner. The only door I'm going to have at this point, I can come back and add a door anywhere I want later on within these 10-foot wide spots. Actually, I think one of these is 12 foot here. I think I left this one 12 foot in case I wanted to put a 12-foot wide door in here at some point. And what I may do down the road is fix it where you can back up here, dig this out a little bit, and make it uh, just where it's a like a loading dock or whatever, and put me a 12 foot, 10 or 12 foot wide door where I can back up and load onto my flatbed truck or any kind of truck I want to back up there and have a loading dock. I'm not doing that now. I'm going to go ahead and just close it in now. So the only entrances will be a door right here, and there's a window right here, and then on this far side down here, it's 20 foot wide and 14 feet high. So I made it big enough where I could get any kind of vehicle in there. I could get my camper in there, my motorhome or whatever. I could get my crane, as you see here. I can get my big any kind of my equipment. I have a lot of equipment. I don't work full time anymore, but I'm a contractor, And so I have a lot of different equipment. I got skid steers, bulldozers, and I need to work on them from time to time. And I needed a place for that. Plus, I wanted somewhere to um, store some of my vehicles that I've got an old classic Bronco that I'm going to restore. I have a couple of razors, Polaris razors that we ride. We go on riding trips with them. I want to keep them stored somewhere inside. So this is a shop slash storage place, and just a place for me to work on my equipment more than anything. So, but that just gives you a little background on it. I'm gonna let it play through in here, and I'll stop and um, comment on things from time to time. And there are a couple of little real short videos where you can see us doing a few things here and there. Just another view of when we finally got all the posts up. And here, this video got a little bit out of sequence here. This was where we were starting to put up um, our roof trusses. And I used metal trusses. They screw together right here, and then you have this brace. I don't know if that you should be able to see across here. And that brace screws on each side. What I found, and this is a 40-foot span, and it's actually 40 foot from inside post to inside post. And what we found was that these would bend from their own weight unless you brace them. This brace right here was not enough, just picking them straight up. And so the first two we tried to pick up there, and it bent them and made them a little. I mean, once we got them up, they were okay, but they were still somewhat. They weren't perfectly straight anymore. I mean, we straightened them out, but what we found was it's better to take two of these and go ahead and put all the purlings in there first and then lift the whole thing. Now, not everybody could probably do that, but since I have this crane, I bought this. It's a military crane. It's an LRT 110 rough terrain crane, and it will lift up to 7.5 tons, which these things didn't weigh anything like that. I want to say, I'm guesstimating. I think the the trusses weighed about close to 300 pounds a piece, and by the time you added all the lumber, I'm guessing that probably 22,000 pounds tops, 2,500, maybe the most 3,000 pounds. So this thing lifted it easily. So you know, not everybody could do it that way, but I would say it made it easier and it made it faster because you could build all this on the ground, set them up, put all your purlins in, already have them in, so you don't have to be up high working on those purlins. And once we put them together and install them like that, we would install them two at a time, and all the purlins would be pre-installed, and you wouldn't have to worry about getting up high. Because, like I said, the top of these posts is 16 feet, and I think it's about another 4.5, 5 feet to the center here. I think I measured it was 23 feet to the top center here. So you can do your actually, these are 16-foot posts. I think I said 14 foot, but they're 16-foot posts. So you can do the math there. I think this adds another 6.5 to 7 feet to it, to the very top of these top two purlins here that are across the top of the ridge. So up to the top of the ridge inside is 23 feet. So it's really tall in there, lots of room to do a lot of other things if I wanted to just build some upstairs storage or even build me a little upstairs apartment or whatever there. So lots of room for any of that. So again, if you could build these things the way we did it, I think it's a much better way to do it. Building them on the ground two at a time and putting all your purlins in and then lifting it up. So then the only purlins you would have to put in from up high would be the ones between the two that you set up there. So, but having this crane was really helpful. I paid about 15 grand for it. I bought it from Iron Planet. I've bought several military pieces of equipment, but this was one. I really wanted to buy a telehandler, was what I originally planned to buy, and because I would have more uses for it than this. But I knew I was going to build this pole barn, and I could not get I couldn't get a telehandler even used for this. This was starting right after COVID when everything was sky high, including the equipment. And the cheapest I could get even a wore out telehandler was about $35,000 or $40,000, and I could get this for half that price. And this actually came in handy, more handy for building this barn than the telehandler. So I'm going to use this, and I may end up selling this and buying me a telehandler. This thing should be worth a lot more than what I paid for it. I had to do a little work to it and get it in good running order, but it works great now. Everything's operational, and it only has like 800 original hours on it, so it's like a brand new machine. The problem was they let it sit up for 5 or 6 years without really using it, and that caused some issues on it. So even though it's an older machine, again, it has less than 800 hours on it. I think it's like 680 hours I have on it, and I've probably put about 30 or 40 of those hours on it myself, using it for different things. But it comes in really handy. I don't know if it comes in handy enough to, I don't know if I can use it enough to justify keeping it after this. But until I can find me a telehandler, I won't. I'll just keep this, and then I'll sell this and apply this towards my telehandler. But let's move on here. Again, this was kind of out of place, so we'll see a few more pictures of us of putting up the post, and then then you'll see us putting up the trusses, and here's us putting up the post. I had somebody else driving the thing for me. We would just, what we would do is we would wrap this. This is just a strap. It's like a 2,500 pound strap, and we would wrap it around one end around the post, up a little higher, and then we'd hook the other end to the crane, and we'd just lift it up there and set it in place, and then I would try to get it as level as I could. And we would put our, while it was standing up as straight as we could get it, which was usually pretty straight, I would go ahead and drill the holes on the in the little concrete, the post holders, and screw it in, and then we would put the level on it and get it level in both directions, and put you can see the where we would brace it up and keep it level. And here we are, we're just making progress. This is where we started putting on the trusses. And just to explain this, we would build them two at a time. So the next two would go here, and all of these purlins would be in, but these wouldn't be. So these were the ones we'd have to come back in between where we put them in. And then this final one, we had to put it in by itself too, because there wasn't, we only had one left. I believe that's how we did it. Maybe we built all three of those together. I think, actually, I'll take that back. I think we built all three of those together and put them up there at one time. Now again, not everybody could do it that way, because you'd have to have a crane or something that could lift that kind of weight and lift it safely and set them down on there. And you need a couple of men too, because as you set it down there, you have to bolt it on and make sure it's lined up properly, which the crane, you could get it, you could almost drop them right in place, so it wasn't that big a deal. So again, my crane came in very handy, and not everybody's going to have a crane, but I believe that's how we did the trusses. I think these last three we built that whole section, and so we only had to come back and put the purlins in across this section, down up this side and down the other. But we'll just move on through the video here. And again, most of these are just pictures, of video I created out of pictures. And that's just us progressing. You can see where we put up a few of the girts on the side here just to help steady it up. Whenever I had a little downtime, I would come along, put up a girt or two. There's a good side angle of it with all three of them up. And just looking at this picture, maybe we did put this one on by itself. I'm not sure, because I think if we had built the whole thing on the ground, we would have already had all the purlins in there, and they're not there. So maybe I'm wrong on that. I can't remember. Yeah, there we are putting that last one up. And I that's correct. I know that's the way we did it because I remember you can see they braced that one with a 2x4. They just drilled some holes in the truss on each side, and they screwed this 2x4 to keep it from bending. And um, and then we just pulled it up, and we didn't have that problem. So that's another way you could do this if you're limited on how much weight you could lift. If yours is wide, 40 or more feet or wide, I've saw people do these with 20-foot ones, and they didn't have this problem. But 40 foot is a long reach for this metal. And when they're sitting down like they're supposed to with this brace, they're very sturdy. But when you pick them up, they kind of bend under their own weight. And that one little brace that runs across their metal brace is not enough, or at least it wasn't for me. And so this is the way I remember we built a brace. I think it's just a 2x4 brace. It might be a 2x6. I can't remember. And screwed it into each side and then picked it up, and then we didn't have that problem with it bending. So we did put that one on last, and that's a good picture of us doing it right there. And again, we just used that 2,500 pound strap on that end, and here we are. We finally got all the trusses up. We got all the purlings in, and we're starting to put up the girts now, finish the girts. And I think we left this here because this was not real sturdy yet until we got this end on. And I didn't want to put the end on until we got completely through. When I say the end, I'm talking about we didn't put the final post on this far end. Notice how we've completed this end, but we left it open here in case we need to get in there with the crane or any kind of machinery or anything yet. And we close that in last. And these are just more pictures of, but yeah, we left that crane hanging back there just to keep it sturdy until we got a few more girts up. Now you can see we got all the girts all the way on this side, the back. Getting closer. That was an old comment. Here we are. We finally got the rear. This was the side where we're going to have this is 20 feet by 14 feet up here. And I'm going to do sliding barn doors on it. That way I got plenty of room to get anything I want in there. But we waited to do this in last. But now you can see we've got it completely framed up. And it looks like they've delivered my roofing laid right here. And we'll start putting the roofing on. You'll see that coming up next most likely, I'm pretty sure. There's probably some more pictures of just the framing in here too. But we're ready to start putting up there we are. We started the roofing now. Got a few panels up there. I wish I could have got this whole thing on video, but unfortunately I did not. But at least I did continue to take pictures, so I've got it documented, and this video will be a permanent documentation of me building my building here. This has been a long time coming. Like I said, I've been wanting a building like this for 40 years, and I just never really had the place or the time or the extra money laying around to get to it. And there's always something else coming along. I just got finished getting a couple of my kids through college and so forth. So this was just kind of on the back burner, waiting for me to find a piece of property, and then just saving a little money because I did pay cash for this. So it's, I don't have any financing on this. I do have financing on the property, but the building's paid for. There's a shot from the inside just looking up. And let me back that up just a hair. I want to show you something here on that. Well, that's not it. Well, did I not go back far enough? Well, what I wanted to tell you was you can see that big roll of insulation right there. And that insulation's probably only a quarter of an inch thick. But what it is, it's silver on one side that reflects 95% of the sun rays, and it's white on the other side, so it's kind of a clean look on the ceiling. And it's not really thick, but it has like, I can't remember if it was I want to say it's like R13. It's only R13. It's not, but it's no, but without it being any thicker than that, that's pretty good. Plus, I used a white roof. I used a polar white on my roof, even though you'll notice the siding is gray and charcoal. I did a wainscot, the lower side on the front. I just did it on the front, across the front, and then on this side where you can see it, and I did that wainscot in a charcoal, and the rest of it's like a light gray. And then I did this ceiling. My roof is all in polar white. And the reason I chose polar white, I'm in the South. It gets hot as Hades here. So the white reflects like 95% of the rays. Then I use this type of insulation, which is supposed to reflect anything else that gets through there away. And it also gives it about a R13 insulation. I am going to heat and cool this building, but the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to put 3 different across this back wall here. I'm going to put one on each end and one in the middle. I'm going to put 3 ductless units in it, and I'm probably going to put about 36,000 BTU. So that'll be a little overkill for this building. And if I need to add another one, I could down the road. I'm hoping that's going to be enough. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to live in here right now, so this thing doesn't have to be 65 degrees in the summer and keep it up to 80 in the winter. I just want it to be comfortable, because when you get in there and get to work and you get to sweating if it's too hot anyway, as long as I can keep it around 65 to 75 degrees in that temperature range without it getting too hot or too cold in there, that's going to be great. And we have pretty mild winters here. Now we'll get some cold temperatures where it gets down even below freezing, but it never lasts more than a couple of days. The average temperature around here in the winter is probably 45 to 50 degrees, and in the summer it's 90 to 100. So the summer is I'm more worried about that than I am the winter. So we'll see how this thing cools. I'm going to put that same insulation on the siding here as well, and we'll see how that does. And I may eventually, for now, on the inside of my building, I don't plan to do anything. Just leave it open. I'm going to put that insulation up, and I do use a house wrap on this, which you'll see coming up. But I'm not going to put any kind of siding on the walls in there for now. And if I do down the road, I'll go ahead and insulate it maybe completely and then put that siding up. And then I know the 3 units I have will be more than adequate. But for now, I think they will be all I need. I know somebody else that has a 40 by 60 building, and they only have 2 units like that, and it tends to work for them. And so I think 3, with me having only 20 more feet, mine being 20 more feet longer, I think mine's a couple of feet taller than theirs as well. But theirs is very adequate for their unit in this area. So with only 36,000 BTU, so I think 3 of them will be more than adequate for me. And I can install those myself, those ductless ones. And so I think I can get that done for less than $5,000, and that's pretty good for a building like this to be able to heat and cool it. So, but let's move on here. Here we are. We've put in my door and my window here. This is where the porch will be. I'm gonna have a 12 by 15 front porch on this thing. I just want somewhere where if we want to come out here and have a little get together and fish fry or barbecue or whatever, we'll have a little covered porch to do that on, get out of the sun in the summertime, stay out of the weather if the weather's not great. I'll probably put a TV out here and stuff where we can watch ball game. I'm a big football sports fan, so I love college football. I mean, I really love all college sports, and we'll keep up with all of them around. I live in a college town. So, but you can see we finished our roof. And now we've added our door and our window here. And I am going to wrap this thing in house wrap, so they went in and wrapped this part before they put the door and window in. Since it's not going to be that well insulated, I just want to make sure I don't have a lot of drafts and wind blowing through my building. With metal buildings, you can have that. So there's a look at it from the end. Got all the most of the house wrap up now. And again, that's just to protect the wood in case there's a leak, or and to keep the drafts out. And here we always started the wainscot. They got all that finished across the front. And I will say this about wainscoting too. These pieces of tin are 16 feet long. And by making this 4 and then having 12, it makes it a lot easier to work with too. I mean, 16 feet's not super difficult to work with, but it you know, the shorter it is, the easier it is to work with. So by doing this in 4 foot, this was real simple to do down here. And I mean, they put this up really fast. And then that made it easier to put the rest of these up. The only place I did the wainscot was across this front and across this side where my double doors are. I didn't put it on this end, and I didn't put it on the back. Nobody will ever see that really because it's covered with woods. So I just did this for really for aesthetic purposes. To me, it looks better. It just adds a little, makes it look a little nicer than all being one color. And again, this is polar white up here. This is charcoal. And then when we get to this part, you'll see it. It's just called gray, but it looks like a light gray. There's the end. They've got all the house wrap up. Here's another shot from inside after all the house wrap. Now they're getting ready to start on the porch. We're going to do the porch before I can put that upper tin up on that right end there. There's the back finished. I did put gutters on this, and you'll see the downspouts at the end. There, this end is finished here. We don't have my doors up yet. We had to build the doors. I don't think I got any pictures of us building the doors, but you'll see them once they're finished. Now they're starting on the porch here. Another shot inside from the end to end. The camera doesn't really do it justice how much room I got in there. I was originally going to do 40 by 60. And there's the porch. They're starting to put the rafters up on the porch. I was originally going to do a 40 by 60 building. And everybody kept telling me, you know, you can't ever make your building too big. Make it as big as you can afford it. Big as you think, whatever you think you need, add 20 feet to it. So rather than go 40 by 60, I just said, you know, it won't be that much more expensive to add 20 more feet. So I went ahead and made it 40 by 80, and I'm glad I did. And like I said, that picture from the shot inside, it doesn't really do it justice because it's big in there. But here they are putting the porch on. They're starting on the rafters. These are just a couple of guys that work for me. Now they're putting the roof on the porch. And I do stain this porch. Now they're starting to put up the rest of the metal. It's one of my best workers up there. That's Balta. There it is. They've got all the metal up now. They were using my crane. What they were doing, they were using the crane. They were walking out here and moving it around and working around the edges, made it kind of easy for them. So that thing comes in handy for all kind of stuff. Well, 30 seconds, I don't know what I was talking about. And here you can see I've stained the deck now. I think it took 1 gallon. This is like a clear stain. I don't like they make a clear stain that you can still see the grain of the wood, and then they make a semi-transparent stain, and maybe even the one I use is transparent. I wanted you to still be able to see the wood. From a distance, it just looks gray. I don't know if there's any pictures that are close enough. And you can see we have put the gutters. The gutters were put up before they put the roof on, but they have put the downspouts in now as well. This one only comes down to the top of the roof there. But I definitely wanted gutters. I didn't want all this stuff dripping off the edge or washing around my foundation or anything. I want this building to be there when I'm dead and gone, and it should be, because I made sure that the foundation was done right. I've made sure we've taken care of any water issues. Um, so it should be there unless a tornado or comes along and blows it down. It should be there when I'm dead and gone. But I really like the wainscot. I think it kind of dresses it up. And I did do my sliding doors here, as you can see. I did them in the charcoal too. And this piece of the barn door hardware, the rails are underneath this right here, and they make this piece of trim that goes up under the upper tin and comes out over the railing and covers it, and it's got like a little drip edge, and that keeps the water out of your barn door railings. And I use the charcoal on that piece of flashing as well. I don't know, I forget what, I think they call it a barn door flashing, but I can't remember exactly. Some of this stuff I had to look. I'd never done a barn door like this before, although I put some metal roofs up and stuff, so I know what some of this, like your rake on the edges. I did use the rake on the edges. I did use the corner, the outside corners. I did put the rat guard at the bottom. I don't want mice and rats and stuff and bugs getting up in there. If you don't, that's one thing I would highly recommend if you do a pole barn. Make sure you use rat guard, because if you don't, those little ridges will just be open and mice can get in there, especially if you got put walls up and insulation, and they'll get all in that. Bugs, everything will get in there. The mice are the worst. So if I highly recommend you use that rat guard, because I've built one shed before without that, and I'm just telling you the problems I had with bugs and mice and even rats were getting through there somehow. But I put the rat guard on this, and there's no way they can get up into my tin. It keeps the bugs out. It keeps all of it out. So I highly recommend it. But there's a good angle at the finish. There's where the door is open. You can see how big that is. You may not can tell just by the picture. There's my front porch, stained and ready to go. I've already got me my chairs out there lounging around in between breaks. That was just after they stained the deck. It looks a little darker there, but it lightened up some once it dried. This was them putting up the barn doors. I think that was the final picture, but it turned out great. I'm real pleased with it. One little mistake I did make, and I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to pour, first I'm going to just put, I have you can kind of see where the old gravel comes up to about right here. There used to be a mobile home that sat here years ago, and so there was gravel that came up right to this spot. So it really was not that big a deal for the road up to here. We had good solid place to bring all the equipment in and all. But from here on, it's just there was nothing there. It was just dirt. And you can see some sand. We had some sand. That sand is left over from when we did the foundation, mixing some of the concrete. But the one mistake I made that I built these doors, and I forgot that there's a step up of about a foot right there down to the ground. And my plan is to come in there and fill this with, bring my gravel all the way in first and let that get packed in, and then I'm just going to build a concrete pad. Probably comes out 12 feet or so, maybe 15 feet, and with a little incline, so you can just drive right in. And you can also pull up here and wash I can wash off my vehicles and stuff and fix it where it drains into a drain and drains on out of there. So I plan to do all that, but I went ahead and built my doors. I wasn't here that day, and I told the guys to go ahead and build the doors, and I didn't tell them to account for the fact that I'm going to build that I'm gonna put a concrete pad and make a ramp into the building there. And so they built it where it comes down about 6 inches too far. So when I get ready to pour that concrete, at some point I'm gonna have to cut these doors off 6 inches. It won't be that big a deal, but it's just the fact I got to do it. Which if I'd have been there, we'd have had them do it right. So keep that in mind if you do barn doors and you're eventually going to pour concrete. Make sure you account for your final uh, level that you want your doors, so your doors aren't hanging down too far like mine are. It's kind of frustrating, but I mean, really, I think I can just unscrew that off this lower board here and just take it and cut it off and then move the board up and screw it back in there. I mean, it's got to be done, so it's going to take some, a couple of hours of one of my days, but it shouldn't be that difficult to do. But it would have been easier to do it right the first time instead of having to come back and change that up. But yeah, I'm real pleased with the building. I was going to just give you some figures here. I haven't totaled everything up completely, but I think this building, I think right now, the only thing really I need to buy yet is my 3 heating and cooling units. And I think I'm gonna get them for under $4,000, definitely under 5. I budgeted four, excuse me, $4,000 for it. And I think I can buy them off eBay and have them delivered for less than $4,000, maybe closer to 3. But I was gonna give you just a couple of figures here, just to give you an idea of what some of this stuff cost. So just quickly on some of the expenses, my biggest cost are the most expensive single item ticket was my foundation. I spent a lot more than most people probably usually would, but again, mine is flat. I don't have to worry about washing any field dirt washing away. I don't have to worry about any field dirt settling. I don't have to worry about my posts rotting because they're not down in the dirt. So the extra money was worth it. I mean, your whole building sits on your foundation, but one of the beauties of a pole barn is being able to not even have to have a flooring if you have a good flat spot. Most people will end up pouring concrete, but you could just a lot of people will put gravel in them. So you could save a lot of money on this. Right now, I think I have about $50,000 in this building, just like you see it. Now, I have not, and that includes the insulation for the walls that I have not put up yet. It includes all the wiring, everything I need for my electrical, lights, everything inside, even though I haven't finished putting all that up yet and finished wiring it yet. All that's included in that $50,000. I probably spent slightly under $50,000. So I'm real pleased. I'd put aside $70,000 to build this thing, and hopefully I'm gonna have $20,000. I still have to buy the heating and cooling. So whatever I spend out of that for the heating, those 3 heating and cooling units, and I'm gonna put them in myself, and usually they come with the kits for everything you need, and I've already got the wiring for it. So that's included in the $50,000 I gave you. So I may have to spend another $3,000 to $5,000 for the heating and cooling, depending on when I buy it, but I'm going to have to get that pretty quickly because it's getting cold here and it's chilly in there, and especially damp. I mean, this time of the year rains a lot here, and even though it doesn't get super cold, that damp, humid air is always chilly, and especially when you go inside the building if there's no sunshine. So, but just to give you an idea on some of the cost here, the metal for the roof, this was for everything for the roof, the gutters, the end caps, the rake, the trim, the enclosures on the closures for the high rib at the top. That's the foam enclosures that keep the bugs out at the top and the bottom. That's everything. The screws, everything, all the materials for the roof for $62, $68, $65. So basically $6,300 for all my materials to do my roof. And again, that includes all the gutters. I mean, that's everything, screws, everything. Actually, I take that back. I think I had to go buy an extra piece of gutter and a couple other little pieces, and that was $150. So you can add $150 to that. So $6,500. Then on my siding, all the metal, and again, this is everything. This is the screws. And it seemed like, and I think I did have to go back and buy a piece or two of trim here or there. And I might have had to buy one more piece of uh, the lighter gray up here, and I think I had to buy a piece of the lower gray, which wasn't a lot of money, but I have that receipt here, I think. But all of the siding, not including what I just talked about, was $48.58. So $5,000 for all the metal for the siding. That includes the screws, the rack guard, all the metal, all the rakes and corners. I mean, that's everything. Screws, everything. This doesn't include labor. This is just what I paid for the materials. And then my porch, the metal for the porch was another $617.38. And now, and I did get a special deal on my posts and all of my girts and purlins. I went over to, there's a pulpwood company about an hour from here, and I went over there and I was able to buy all my posts. And those posts are really expensive. I think I got those posts for half price what you would get them at Home Depot or any of the box stores or even the local. As a contractor here, I get contractor prices at any of the local building materials places here. And but they're not. Home Depot's gotten pretty competitive with them lately. So you might save $5 a post on a 16-foot 6x6, but I think at the time at Home Depot those things were about $78 a piece, and I got them for like $25 a piece. So I think in all my wood materials, including the girts, and I did have to go buy a few extra purlins. I came up a little short. I had enough girts, but I came up short on the purlins, and I think I had to go buy maybe 40 more of those. And so I bought those at the local lumber supply here. But I think all of my materials on my wood materials that I need, including the post, and that would be including any of the screws, that was, I spent $2,800, I think. So I got that dirt cheap, really. Not everybody will be able to do that either. But I was able to get those dirt cheap. And all of the post forms that are set into the concrete that the posts set on, those are not cheap either. I use I got the Simpson Strong Tie type, and they go into the concrete when it's wet. So when the concrete sets up, they're set up in the concrete and can't go anywhere. And I'm trying to remember how many posts I set, but however many of those I set, I think it was about $1,800 for those forms. So they're not cheap. I know you can go on eBay and buy something similar that are made with it. They make them out of rebar, and you stick the rebar down in the concrete, and they set up on those. And I think they're $75 a piece or something like that. So they're not any cheaper than what I got, I don't think. So those things are expensive. You figure, I think there's about 30 posts in there, somewhere around there. So if you figure 30 times 75, I mean, that's $2,250. And I think I spent close to that for what I used. I think I spent, like I said, it was $1,500 to $1,800 for those forms. And I ordered those, but that was delivered to my front door. So, but yeah, like I said, I spent more money on my foundation than most of you might. But I probably made up a lot of it on the lumber too. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, again, right now I've got about 50 grand in this thing, and by the time I get done um, inside, putting up the heating and cooling, finishing the wiring, that was another thing. My lights, I bought 24 UFO lights, and I paid $800 for those UFO lights. Now down at the electrical company, those lights were double what I paid for them on eBay, and I bought them in bulk. And I'm sure they came directly from China, but I got to looking at the ones out there at Home Depot, and I went down to electrical supply, and they were the same price as Home Depot, even with the contractor's price, and they all come from the same place. So it doesn't matter whether you buy them on eBay that they came from China, or actually I think I bought those on I bought them on not eBay but Amazon, and I bought 20. Originally, you could buy them in 10, 5, 10, 15, or 20, and the more you bought, the cheaper the price got. But I started out with 20, but when I got done, there's like 8 sections in between each side here, since they're 10 feet apart, since my posts are 10 feet apart on average, there's 10 sections. And in the end, I wanted to have 3 lights in every section, one on each side and one in the middle, and so that comes up with 24. So I bought 4 more lights, and I think I paid an extra $2 or $3 a piece for those. But it was 800, and then when I bought the other, I think I paid $850 for my lights. But I want it to be bright in there. I mean, that may be overkill, but I'm going to set it up where I can light it in 3 sections. I'm going to have a front section, a middle section, and then a rear section, and I'll have 3 switches there where you can, so that way I don't have to turn on all the lights in the building if I don't want them. And if I do want to light the whole building up, I just flip all 3 of them at one time. So they're all LEDs, so they don't burn a lot of electricity anyway. I mean, used to you'd have to put up halogen type lights in here to get it good and bright, and they burn some electricity, but we've come a long way since then. So far with the couple of lights I've put up, I'm very pleased with them. They're very bright, and I think 24 is going to be overkill. But again, I want it to be like daylight. I don't want to be working in there and can't see and in the dark, and I want it to be bright and like daylight. And so for another $150, I felt like it was worth doing overkill than not doing enough. So anyway, hope this video is, again, I wish I would have been able to video the actual construction and had a video of it, but thank goodness I did take pictures along the way, so I was at least able to put this together. And so hopefully it was helpful to you if you're wanting to build a building like this. I'm proud of mine, and it's been a long time coming. And yeah, I'm going to have 50 to 55 grand in it when I'm done. So that's everybody always wants to know what something like this costs. Having the place to build it's the big thing. If you got the land, the building's not that big a deal. The land costs a lot more. But I ended up, the piece of property I bought, I ended up getting a free house with it basically. And luckily I bought that right before housing prices almost doubled. So this place is probably worth double what I paid for it now, even before I put this building on it. So, if I had this building appraised, I'm guessing it's going to appraise for $80,000 to $100,000, and I got, almost less than half of that in it. So, anytime I build something, I try to justify building it. If I wanted to get rid of it or I needed to get rid of it, can I get my money back out of it? Well, I know I could probably double my money or better on this piece of property in this building because everything's doubled in price since then. So, but I feel pretty good being able to build this at that price. Again, a lot of this has to do with where you live too. If you live in some places, these materials may cost you more. I go to a place and get my metal. They're like one of the cheapest places to buy metal. They're all about bulk. And I bought a lot of metal from there over the years, and they always give me a great price. And I gave you those prices earlier, which I think is, it's probably less than $15,000 for the metal. Well, it was 8 and 6, and then So yeah, probably less than 20 grand for the metal on this building. I mean, you can't beat that. So I wish my trailer wasn't sitting there in the way of most all the pictures, but we were hauling stuff in and out of there, and I always kept it parked right there, bringing stuff in and out. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I apologize that it wasn't a straight video that was, you know, and full screen as well, because off your iPhone, this was the best I could do. All this came off my iPhone. But luckily I did, as I said, luckily I took pictures as I was going along, or I wouldn't have had anything. And I was really disappointed when I found out half my videos were, actually it was probably 2/3 of the video I took building this thing uh, got destroyed by accident. So, but anyway, again, hope you enjoyed this. Hope it was helpful to you. And I'm going to wrap it up.